Hey, Mike Holmes here at ReachKeep.com and back with you for Team Turkey number 2. This is 5 Minutes to Better Sundays, and I'll give you just a short intro. We'll jump right into this. This is going to be a little longer than 5 minutes. This is my recording on the front and then a little training, then I'll come back and catch you just at the end. But you're going to enjoy this. This gives you some of the practical stuff of why we do this, how to reach out and double or maybe triple your church, and really just basically wear yourself out for other people. It's an exhausting thing doing a community dinner where you feed everybody, and again, not just a church dinner, but a dinner for your community. But you will not regret this. This is a wonderful thing. So hang right in there, and of course, shoot me any questions if you have at info@reachkeep.com, and we're here to help you, and enjoy this next little bit of training. Hello, this is Mike Holmes, and I'm with the Baptist Youth Mission and ReachKeep.com, and I am glad to be back with you for part 2 of this episode we're doing on our community Thanksgiving dinner. This is probably one of the best things that we have done to reach out into our community, and I am very excited to be here in our recording area. This is actually our creative room where we kind of sit and work on some things. There's just a little room in the back of our church where we stop and spend some time thinking and put some things on the whiteboard. And we want to encourage you take some time and think about what you're doing to reach out into your community, and that's exactly what's going on here. The idea of running a community Thanksgiving dinner is very outreach oriented compared to some of the things that we do, and I think it's important that our churches understand that we do have a mandate from the Lord to reach out into our community. Our philosophy is outreach. In fact, our name is reachkeep.com, and we want to reach people. We want to give them the gospel. Here at our church, we want to create flourishing believers, and to create flourishing believers, you've got to get people in the door. One way or the other, and that's part of what the community Thanksgiving dinner is all about, and this whole idea that we have called Team Turkey. So very excited about it. If you've ever invited someone to church, then you're in, because you see the value of having them come and be involved in your church process, your building, coming in and sitting and hearing the gospel and singing and being with other people, the value of friendships that are there. And so we're going to cover some of those things in this session. There's really 2 things I want to cover, and that is, number one is what we call outsider thinking. It's how to think a little bit more like an outsider, because you have to think that way in order to reach out into the community. And the second one is what we call a philosophy that this is what we call an acquisition event. Every church has ways that they bring people in, whether it's a door knocking or putting a flyer in the newspaper or whatever. This falls into that category as an acquisition event. So we're going to start out with the outsider thinking and the whole idea of bringing people into the church. Now, if you're a doctrinal purist and you read the Bible and the New Testament, you know that the church is really the called out assembly of believers, and that churches are made for the church is really made up of believers. So is it even valid that we bring people into church? And I believe that the answer is yes, of course, that people can be, and we do, and I'm sure you have as well, invited people to come into the church. We have many parables and places in the Bible, New Testament, where it tells us go out on the highways and hedges and compel them to come in. The fields are white unto harvest. You have to go out and harvest, and bring them in. And that's exactly what a community Thanksgiving dinner is a time to really think about the folks that are not at your church as a people who are at your church. Now, the ones that are at your church all the time, we think about them all the time. They're there, every Sunday. They're there for midweek services. We see them at other times. And so it's really a time to kind of start to think a little bit more like an outsider, and that's a challenge. And I've sat down with my staff just the other day, and we actually said, the people that we would like to have in our church who are not here, where are they? And we listed a whole bunch of places, and those are some of the places where we would go fishing to catch some of those. Our elementary schools are filled with young families. Our church is aimed at bringing in young families. The local grocery store has, nearly our entire town goes to the grocery store in this community. We have one grocery store, and so they all end up there at one time or another. So we put posters, flyers at the grocery store. The laundromats are very big in our town because we have a lot of workers that come in and work the oil fields, and they have to wash their clothes. And so there's an area where we can go and compel them to come in. So thinking outside of what you normally think is a very important thing. And I want to encourage you to kind of sit down and do that. Now, why do you have to do that? And one of the reasons you have to sit and really think this through is because they're not here. The outsiders aren't here, so they don't naturally have a voice. The insiders are always, making a case for their particular program or Sunday school or, how we would do this event. But the outsiders have to be thought at. And some of those things come down just the simple things of signage and how to get to your church. I've been to many churches that, they're a challenge to find. They're kind of tucked in, on some back road somewhere. And this is the time to really think about putting up some different signs or, even some temporary signs, kind of like the, garage sale over here, kind of a sign, and get people to come to church. And that's what outsider thinking will do. It will kind of get you going in that direction. Having greeters and having someone there ready so when the people come in for the Thanksgiving dinner that you're there to welcome them. Having a little piece of literature or something that they can have so they kind of familiarize themselves. People are much more comfortable, if they have something in their hand. And so you give them a little piece of literature, tells about the church or the purpose of the church or the kids program. Have that prepared ahead of time. You wouldn't think about that with your own people because they know everything about the Sunday schools and where the church is and the history of it. But it's a great thing to really kind of back up and think outsider. So directions to the church, giving them something like that, making them comfortable in the physical sense. In other words, where are the bathrooms and some of the plain things. And we have some podcasts that we've done on this, and I want to encourage you to go to reachkeep.com and look those up. They're free audio training. We have a couple different ones. One of them is called Getting New Visitors to Church, and it covers a lot of these things I'm just now talking about. We have another one that is kind of sequential called Removing Barriers to Guests. And there are some hidden barriers that sometimes we have that we put up, and that podcast covers those. And then Getting Guests to Return is a third podcast, and those are all kind of together. They're on the website, and you can find those and listen to those for free. It'd be a great thing to listen to with your some of your leadership people there. So outsider thinking is paramount, and it has to be done. We all know in the technical sense, again, the church is the believers, but in the tactical sense, the church is that lighthouse on the hill. I mean, we are the rescue mission. We are the emergency room. We are the hospital. And there are people in your community that are thinking right now, man, my kids are falling apart. My life is falling apart. My marriage is falling apart. And when they think of that, many of them think of the church as the place to go. And by having an event and bringing them in, that is a way to kind of catch them. And the Thanksgiving dinner is made specifically for that. So that's a powerful thought. Outsider thinking. I want to encourage you to, like say, sit down and kind of pretend you're lost, pretend you've never been to your community, and really kind of think through the whole process of coming to your church. The second thing that I want to cover in this the second episode that we're doing here is the idea that this is an acquisition event. This is not a typical event that your church does. Most churches, 90% of the things that they do, have, preaching and singing and, prayer and invitations and, however you do it at your church. We have some things. This is a little bit different. This falls into what we call here at our church, at Baptist Youth Mission, Sinclair Baptist. We call it an acquisition event. There needs to be places in a time of a church, in the time of the church people, where we focus on acquiring new people. We take time to bring new people and new faces and get them into the system. It is not as much a gospel presentation. It can be, and I'm not against that, but it's kind of some of those things where you get exposure of your church. For example, I know many churches that have offered their church facility as like a voting precinct. and the whole community shows up at the building to do their voting. Well, that's a positive thing, because people walk in and they're kind of sort of scared to go into a church sometimes if they haven't been for a long time. They think it's going to fall down, and all those stories that we hear. Recently, I was invited to go, and we're out here in what we call LDS country, or Mormon country, of a lot of Latter-day Saints out here. And I had never been in their building, and I was like kind of scared to go in their building. I wasn't sure if I should, and there was a piano recital. And I thought, this is an opportunity, and they had it in one of the side rooms, and I went and I stuck my head in there and watched the piano thing, and they had little refreshments afterwards, and I stuck my head in their auditorium, which looked almost identical to every church's auditorium, pews and pulpit and some of those things, and I'm sure that the Mormon people were happy to have an acquisition event like that. Well, that's the same thing with us. I mean, while we're scared of them, there's people scared of us. And so if we can just get them in the building for something that's comfortable, in this case, it's a Thanksgiving dinner we're talking about, or the voting precinct, or even if if you do weddings or funerals, or a variety of things. In fact, Jesus told us to kind of come and see. There was that phrase that's used in the Gospel of John, "Come and see." And I think there are people that are inquisitive and looking for an opportunity to come in your building and see what it's all about. And this is one of those times. It takes a great advantage of that, because it's a soft invite. In other words, you've got a dinner, you're going to have some just discussion, you're going to have pumpkin pie. What could possibly go wrong with that? Now, for many of you are saying, well, where do you preach the gospel, or how do you give the gospel to them? And here's how we do it. Now, I have had churches that have tried these type of things, and they have, everyone eats, and then they stop, and then they give a gospel invitation or a message, and I guess that's okay. We didn't design ours that way. What we do with our people, since it is an acquisition event, is we have our very best relationship people. They're not serving food. They're not, cleaning things up. Our best relationship people that know the gospel and can witness and talk and be a blessing to somebody, those people are, what they're doing is they're watching, and they are meeting with people, and they're sitting down and roaming. In fact, many of our staff doesn't even eat the Thanksgiving dinner at all until the entire thing is over. So that's one of those it's a strategic thing. In other words, don't plan on eating or catch it later or catch a little before, if you're hungry, but you spend your time being there with the people, talking to them and moving from table to table and building relationships, telling them about the Sunday school, telling them about a Bible study you're doing, telling them about your latest sermon that you heard and your notes you took, or, just building some friendships. So that is part of that acquisition event, is just kind of they come and see, get them to come, and then you kind of spend that time with them. And again, we don't have a preaching event. I'll tell you a little bit more in our next session, kind of how the whole format works, all the way through the whole thing, because it's a several hour process to get it all done. We'll tell you how all that works. But these two things are critical if you're going to do this properly. This is not just a church dinner at Thanksgiving time for your church people. That's easy. You can do that at St. Patrick's Day. You can do that anytime. This is a community Thanksgiving dinner. And you're going to go out into the highways and hedges, and you're going to invite the lame and the blind and all of the folks that don't normally come to church, and asking them to come to church. By the way, you get some people come that are not exactly the most desirable, or just a little bit different. And we've had a lot of interesting stories. We'll try to tell you some on the next event here. But getting people to come, it is not about just feeding the church people and maybe their cousin and their relative. It is how to get the most people in. And as I mentioned, you can have 2 to 3 times your normal church attendance. You can take time to you can take, your attendance, say you have 50 people, you can have 150 different people at your church on that Sunday afternoon for a dinner like this. I want you to think about that. The opportunity to really touch that many people and to really get into that many people's lives. What a great thing this is. So we're going to continue. We're going to give you another episode here in just a little bit. I'm going to invite our executive secretary, Terry Schultz, who's done some recordings with us before, and she's the management side of this, and she knows us very well. And it tell you all the neat little things that we've done, because there's a lot of things that are very practical. That'll be in the next film that we do, and then you'll be able to use those things and maybe pass that one on to the some of your staff people, some of your ladies, and help them see how we actually run the event. But for now, this is a great thing, the Community Thanksgiving Dinner. And as I mentioned, Team Turkey, bringing your whole church together, it's a great thing. So thanks for being with us, and we will catch you here in just a little bit on another one. Hey, all right, I'm back, and hey, just remember, this is an acquisition event, and I think that's the biggest thing. This is not a full-blown preaching service, and if you try to make it that way, then it gets kind of complicated. You don't really get a chance to serve, but this is the place where we get to sit and listen to people, we get to talk to people, we get to befriend people, we get to, be a host or hostess to them, we get to serve them, and our people all get to do that too. That is so good for us, and it really gets the mind of our church away from service, like the ritual side of church service, into the serving side of a service. And so I hope you can do this. Don't forget to take time. First of all, number 3 will be available here. Go ahead and try to find number 3. And if you missed number 1, this is number 2 of a 3-part series here on Thanksgiving dinners and Thanksgiving community dinners. But number 3 is out there. Find number 3, and then go ahead and make sure that you subscribe to Reach Keep. You'll get number 3 that way if you haven't already. And then also, there's so many other good resources on our playlist of 5 Minutes to Better Sundays and some of our other training essentials there. So take a look there at reachkeep.com on YouTube. That's basically on YouTube. It's a Reach Keep channel. Or click one of these little buttons here, and that should get you off there. So God bless, and we'll see you on number 3.